Namaskar and welcome to another 9 p.m. live. Acha, you know what? The good thing about my profession is I get an advantage. Advantage is I can interview people who I admire. And that's a good thing. I can talk to people who I admire, and I am going to introduce you to one such personality today. Somebody I admired, and somebody who has always been known as a straight, strict officer. And I mean, what am I introducing you? Because I think the whole world knows her. So let's get right into the show and let's meet Mrs. Meera Borwankar. Let's get right to the show. Ma'am, welcome to my show. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Ma'am, let me ask you a very simple question that a lot of people ask me to ask you, by the way. A young girl joining IPS, why, ma'am? Why not IAS? Why not accounts? Why IPS?
So my father was in Punjab Police, and you have introduced me as Meera Borwankar, but I like to be introduced as Meeran Chadha Borwankar because that Punjabi part of me is very important. And I had seen my father's uniform, the way he would go around, and the way uniform attracts people. As a child also, I thought it's something very meaningful. And in my first chance for UPSC, I cleared and I opted for Indian audits and accounts. You have mentioned accounts. But as a child, I was an outdoor kind of person. Basically, I had no head for accounts. So I keep advising youngsters that when you choose your career, be careful. I made a mistake and was lucky to get into the civil services again in my second chance and opted for IPS. Youth should be very careful while filling the forms for various examinations. And my opting for police is definitely having seen my father in uniform, though he was not very much in favor because in 80s, girls and women were hardly ever seen in police.
But ma'am, you also, when you joined the services, you saw 72 guys and you were the only lady in the entire group. You too were homesick. That's what you write.
Yeah, absolutely. I admit that that 1 year was one of the most painful period, I would say, because the boys in my batch, they didn't welcome me. They felt I was the odd person out, and I made a mistake by shifting from audits, Indian audits and accounts, to police. And every day, at least once, I would hear, "Let go back." That plus the fact that from Punjab I had moved to Hyderabad, and the training itself, I have described it in my book, was very tough. Uh, and though I am an outdoor person in the sense as a child, I was good in horse riding, I was good in shooting, I used to play cricket for my college. But Indian Police Service trains you with more emphasis, at least during those days, on physical fitness. That I found tough and emotionally very lonely.
But were you ready for it? As in, were you not aware that there'll be a lot of physical fitness and all that before you joined?
No, I was aware. That's why when I'm asked, did you ever think of quitting? I never did. I didn't even once think of quitting. But I think if there had been more women, more girls, things would have been easier for me. And our audience must know that in 1981, if I was the lone lady officer being trained for Indian Police Service, today in a batch of 200 being trained in National Police Academy in Hyderabad, there are 59 girls. So India has changed.
India has changed, and people like you made it happen, right? In some way, you stood your grounds. They asked you to crop your hair, but you refused to do that. You, in fact, did your drill with more vigor after that. I presume that's what you write here.
If even if not with more vigor, I didn't understand the logic. I've explained in the book that I wasn't late ever. either for parade or for morning exercises or for yoga or for horse riding, for swimming, for rock climbing, for jungle survival nights. If I am able to manage my hair and be there on time in all the activities, I didn't understand the logic except that because men have short hair and because you have entered into a profession which is male dominated, you must have short hair. That I didn't buy that argument.
You stood your ground always, isn't it, ma'am? I mean, you've never changed for anybody. You're not changed for anything. And this, as we go through your career, it has always been something that I want to talk to you about that gentleman RJ who came and put up that indecent proposal to you, and unfortunately, your own batchmates were not very supportive of you. A lot of them.
See, I think we Indians are conservative by nature. My batchmates did not support me in the sense they felt what was the need for her if he made an indecent proposal and Meera had come and told us, we would have sorted it out amongst ourselves. What was the need for her to report to the joint director? But look back now, when they look back, they agree that my loneliness was very profound, and whatever I did was for my best interest. But even my first joint director, whom I met with this complaint that this person has made this proposal, the attitude generally was, now that you have joined police, be prepared for it. I was not.
But it didn't really end there, did it, ma'am? Because you faced the same when you were in CID. Your boss there was not very decent either.
Yeah, he made some remarks which I felt offended. And I was not well those days. I had undergone a surgery and I decided I will not go back. Why should I get harassed? There are phases in your life when you feel it's not worth it. So my protest was by proceeding on leave, and maybe some other woman officer, lady officer, would have given it in writing, complaint, but I didn't do either in the first case or in the second case. I protested in my own way. But today, if you ask me, I would say that if you feel sexual harassment at workplace, now the law is very much in our favor and we should come out in open and give it in writing. Neither in 81 nor I think in 2004 the law was so explicit.
So you stood your ground there. Also, when you were asked to go and meet the home minister because you thought he was corrupt, you stood your ground. You never went. You took a transfer.
Yeah, but let's not make a heroine out of me. I'm an ordinary officer who has some very strong value system. We are four siblings. We have been brought up by a very strict mother who was a teacher before her marriage, and by an officer of Punjab police who was known for his honesty. So those values came so naturally to me that when I was asked to meet a corrupt home minister, I refused. And
Ma'am,
mind you, in the book, I have mentioned that another officer supported me.
yes, you have. One very interesting part of your book is when your commissioner literally asked you that have they sent you? This was during the Kamatipura riots. And I like that paragraph. I want to read that paragraph for my audience. I'll just take 2 minutes. This paragraph is very, very interesting.
Why
You
don't
wrote, I
you show
looked
me a book? I don't have it just now. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. This is the book that I'm referring to, and you say I looked around for the traffic branch officers who followed me, but not one of them was in sight. The only guy standing next to me was my bodyguard. So everybody scooted, right? That's what happened that day, ma'am. What exactly
Yeah,
happened that day?
yeah. That was very distressing for me, very alarming also. And now, when we discuss with officers, we always tell them that you must have your own personal staff very loyal to you. Here, I had gone with officers whom I did not know because the riot was very spontaneous. Yes, they did vanish from the spot.
But what was the commissioner thinking when he asked you, कि भाई आपको भेजा है, have they sent you?
I think he was also very agitated. See, there had been police firing. a young boy had been killed. Earlier on the same spot, another young man had, in fact, a sub-inspector, probationer who was under training had been killed. And when commissioner was Gherao, he was very agitated. And when you are in such a situation, your inner self comes out. And control room was sending officers from the nearby locations. And when I reached, his immediate reaction was, "They have sent you?" But again, here, let's not discredit everyone. The additional CP immediately understood my hurt, and he asked me to go and seek more manpower from his vehicle. So, the youngsters who may be listening to your this session, or maybe even the audience, must understand that we have officers in a mixed bag. So, if a commissioner felt agitated that a lady officer had been sent to help him out, the additional CP appreciated and immediately understood, okay, she has reported, let's use her expertise, let's use her services. So you, one was maybe not very gender sensitive, other was.
Ma'am, then after that you were transported to Zone 4, which was quite a tough zone, isn't it? Dharavi and all of those areas.
Yeah, even I couldn't believe that. But it's the same commissioner, mind you, the one who said they have sent you. When it came to proposing the DCP for Zone 4, the toughest zone in Mumbai, he's the one who suggested my name.
So how was it? How was it handling Zone 4? Was it
No,
tough on you?
yeah, it was very tough on you, especially because women from Dharavi had lots of hope from me, and they used to invest in something called Bisi. It's a local, you collect money, and then kitty, like women from middle class and above, they have a kitty. These women would put Bisi, and the man would disappear with the money, and they would expect that now that we have a woman DCP, she would help us out. Sign was full of accidents. Mahim, we had so many communal situations when I was the DCP. So it was tough, but I was also young and I was able to cope. Despite my first child being young, somehow I managed.
Ma'am, at any given point in time, and I ask you a very honest question, at any given point in time, did you ever feel that, being a woman, you couldn't execute the job as much or as well as a guy could, a man could? Did you ever feel in your career?
No, but initially I used to get very overawed by men, tall men in uniform. Look, they look dashing. And I felt, how would I cope? And over a period of time, I really understood this kahavat, that appearances are deceptive. And I realized, I have mentioned it in my book, that crime investigation never came difficult to me. It is problem solving, and all of us can solve a problem if we think logically, we have patience, we have perseverance. Handling a riot or a violent mob uh, initially made me feel apprehensive, but I think I could do justice, and I never felt that men are doing better. In fact, I have referred to a case in this book where a very tall DCP Zone 5 told the commissioner of police that he could not find the spot of riot where about 60 rounds had been fired, four people killed. It was his zone, and yet me and my staff stood the ground. Uh, so I never felt this, that men do a better job than women. And even citizens now feel, and they are asking for women officers.
Ma'am, then post that, I want to talk to you about your exposure to corruption. You said that you were exposed to corruption when you saw a DG actually asking for money. What was that? How was that feeling? And till then, were you not exposed to corruption?
No, I was. In fact, when I was a young additional SP in Kolhapur, one officer came to me. He was considered the most ghag kind of, police officer. And talking to me, he said, you know, one takes money and invests in agriculture. If you wish, we can guide you how to invest. I asked him everything because in police we are taught to ask questions, and I think I look very mild and not worldly wise. He told me all the ways in which uh, I could invest the money. So I was exposed, and I knew that money is being made in police at different levels. But I told you, I don't take any credit. I think it's the value system imparted to me as a child that taking money or making money never came to my mind. And when this DIG asked for money in front of me, it was my natural reaction to oppose it and to write to the Director General of Police, who took action. An inquiry was instituted, and most poignant point was when that officer said, "Sir, you are from IPS." He told this to the inquiry officer. "Madam is from IPS. The DIG was asked for money. He is from IPS. आप मेरा बलि का बकरा बनाओगे क्या?" So when I was told this by the inquiry officer, I was absolutely stunned. And I felt that my writing to the Director General was totally justified. But mind you, later on, when I look back, this was the first time in Maharashtra that lady had been made district police chief. Up till then, it was only men. And when I had asked for district, my file was returned by the chief minister twice. Now, when I look back, I feel if I had not protested, my DIG would have made me that, that Katputli kind, and he would have acted as the district police chief. So, not only did I protest because of my strong value system, in retrospect, I feel that I justified my claim that I can run a district as a district police chief, and I will not allow anyone to use me as a puppet.
But complaining against fellow officers, didn't it have its own ramifications later on in your career, ma'am?
Yeah, it did. So whenever you take a strong stand, you may say, like, I feel it came naturally to me. In fact, recently I was asked, आपने तो बहुत लोगों को नाराज कर दिया. But somehow I never felt I had an option. I never felt there was an option to keep quiet when a senior officer was asking for money in front of me.
Ma'am, this concept of monies for transfer, does it exist in police, and how rampant is it?
Yeah, sure. Not only in police, in all services. And that is what the politicians have done to administration. They want mera admi, uska choice ka officer. In fact, once when I was waiting for the chief minister, his helicopter was to land. This I have not quoted. Now that we are talking, I'm just remembering that episode. And we were waiting. A very powerful MLA was also there. Lot many other political and officials were there waiting for the CM's helicopter to land, and he started scolding a lady officer who is from who was a deputy collector posted there, and he was very rude to her. And I told him, "Why are you, sir? And mind you, we always sir then. Sir, why are you scolding her?" He said in Marathi, "But I have got her here, na? So she should do what I ask her." Now, this is the story not only of Maharashtra, but all over the country, in all the states. Politicians, whether it's agriculture, rural development, education, police, IS, they want officers of their choice. And therewith, the next understanding is that what we tell you, you will do. And that's what I have talked about in my book.
Ma'am, since we are on the topic of politicians, I want to talk about the Jalgaon sex scandal. A lot of politicians were involved. How difficult was it for you?
So now, see, imagine 30 years later, and again we have Karnataka. Uh,
Yes.
it was difficult professionally because the reporting of cases was very late, just like in Karnataka. And sexual exploitation cases are dependent on medical certificate and the deposition of the victim. So many victims in Jalgaon came to us as a team. We were the women officers, but they talked about their exploitation by two sitting municipal councillors and one MLA's former MLA's son, but they would not give their complaints. So these cases of sexual exploitation, if reported late, lead to acquittal. People get very scared, therefore witnesses do not come forward. And in our cases also, 6 out of 12 victims turned hostile. They did not support us. So I would say a case of sexual exploitation reported immediately is not tough to either investigate or to get it convicted. But if reported late, it's quite a challenge.
But let me ask you this question, ma'am. Are we equipped enough to handle? Is Maharashtra police, stroke Indian police service, equipped enough to handle crime against women the way it should
Yes,
be?
sure. Yeah, sure. And mind you, how India has changed from one lady officer to 59 lady officers today. That time, Maharashtra government used to send women officers to help me in Jalgaon from Nashik, Nagpur, Mumbai, Pune, because Jalgaon had only one lady officer. Today we have 33% reservation for women in different ranks in police and in other departments. And these women officers, they the victims depose faith in them. They come out with the facts. The officers are trained to investigate. Medical officers, especially after Nirbhaya, have been trained and retrained how to handle these medico legal cases. Therefore, I would say Maharashtra police and Indian police have both been trained well, and the Indian Penal Code, which will of course be changed now, has been amended accordingly. And I am very confident, though I feel sad that as of today, the conviction in rape cases in India is less than 30%. But we are competent. It's the late reporting and victims and witnesses turning hostile, which is the main cause of acquittal.
Ma'am, we talk about Indian police service and we compare it to the West. You have interned in Minneapolis police services, and there's a very interesting incident here that you've written about. How was your experience working in the United States, and how is it different from working in India?
So in India, a police officer works for all over the country, in all the states, for about 14 hours a day. In US, they work for 40 hours a week, which means
Week.
not an hour with more than 8 hours a day. Therefore, while our officers and men are totally exhausted, and therefore I'm not justifying it, but sometimes insensitive, officer in US is fresh because he knows after 8 hours he will go off duty. And from technology point of view, at that time in 2001, they were much ahead of us. When I would patrol with them in 2001, they had laptops in their cars, and they had the crime data in their laptops, and that covered the whole country. In India, now technologically we have made big strides. We are quite ahead, but still, as against the ratio of 220 police officers per lakh of population, 220 police officers per lakh of population, we have only about 160. So overworked manpower is a very serious issue.
But you still talk about racism there, and you still talk about racism and how real it is in US.
Yeah, they also undergo lots of training of sensitization, but sometimes, yes, I confronted that, and I confront here also.
I mean, you quote an incident where this happens, where a lady is actually falsified because she says it was a white man who attacked her, and the officer incidentally wanted to say it's a black person who did that, isn't it?
But I couldn't go into details. I was only interning with them. So I don't know who's right, who's wrong. But what I saw, what I mentioned is that if a victim refuses to cooperate with police, they can close the case. The officer gave it in writing that the victim in this particular case and victim of gunfire, she is refusing to cooperate and divulge the identity of the accused, and I'm closing the case, and it was accepted. In India, we have so much Unnecessary documentation. My personal feeling, and that I mentioned in the book, is unnecessary documentation not only in police but also in courts.
So, ma'am, tell me, you came back to India, and at some point you became the Joint Commissioner of Police Crime in Mumbai. Now, Joint Police Commissioner of Crime is possibly one of the most celebrated position in Mumbai. In fact, if not more than the CP Mumbai, Joint CP is seen as the most happening person in Mumbai. Just so that my audience know. And you were the joint CP. You were the first joint CP, lady joint CP in Maharashtra, weren't you, ma'am?
Yeah, but
So,
do you know,
uh,
when I was asked, when my willingness was asked, and the orders were passed, there's a gap of 3 months, because having asked me, I was told government was having lot many doubts.
why would that be, ma'am? Because you're a lady, or
My gender.
because Acha. But you also, a lot of politicians, they say, and a lot of officers who we speak to, they say that, listen, straight officers normally get it. It's very difficult for them to get good postings because a politician may not want a straight officer. And you have written in your book that you see at times you have postings so that you decorate the officers use a decoration so that
Yeah, yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
true. Yeah, yeah. So actually, we are used as window dressing many a times. I have mentioned it, but in crime branch, I was told later on that the government felt that the so-called encounter specialists had gone berserk. They wanted an officer whom these encounter specialists could not approach, and who was straight and who was professional. By the time I had put in more than 20 years of service, I had worked in CBI, I had headed two districts, I had worked in CID. So professionally, I was competent, I was straight, and the fact that I'm unapproachable was known all over. Unapproachable as far as money is concerned, or access to power is concerned. But throughout my career, I kept 1 hour walk in for citizens, and I got the best of information by citizens coming and meeting me without any appointment, and sometimes giving me information. Like the title of the book, if you have read that, two girls were very agitated that instead of sending them help when they needed, police officer in the control room questioned their being out of home in a cafe at 9 o'clock. And those girls came and banged my table and they said, Madam Commissioner, if you are sitting here, why are we being asked these questions? So, uh, an officer, if he's straight, is politicians generally don't like, but state officers have their advantage. Whenever there is a serious conflict, right, these officers are posted. And same with me, I was posted in crime branch, maybe because of that.
And how was it, ma'am, handling Mumbai Crime Branch? I mean, it looks like some cinema theater, isn't it? I mean, Dawood, and this would be a daily lingo, na? Dawood kya kar raha hai, and Chota Shakil kya kar raha hai, and you spoke about Vicky Malhotra, you spoke about your rundown with the IB. How did it all happen, ma'am? How was it? How did you handle all this?
So, so what I have not mentioned, I'll tell you, is that once when very rich, famous producer and director of that time, he received extortion calls and he didn't report to us. But we intercepted some calls and we realized that his life was in danger, and he was sitting in a particular building where uh, the shooters were waiting downstairs. And when I rang him up and I said in Marathi, I'm Borwankar speaking, you don't come down, your life is in danger, he forgot all about danger. He says, when can I make a movie on you, ma'am?
But
So, see, I knew how to investigate crime, how to supervise investigation, but these macho encounters, so-called encounter specialists, they were not happy with me. But I think because 98% of the crime branch was with me, they supported good documentation, straight trial, that I had very comfortable and enjoyable, professionally, very enjoyable 3 years in the crime branch.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask you a very, a slightly, a person, for a layman like me would definitely want to know. You see, you had a Vicky Malhotra who would call people and extort money. You tried to curb it. You tried to arrest him, and then he was working with an intelligence outfit of ours. Now, how does all of this work, ma'am? As a common man, I mean, he is extorting money from a layman, a person, common person. And what is our intelligence agency working with him for? Well, how does it exactly work?
No, maybe as a layperson, one may not understand, but I'm very sure you understand that various agencies work at different levels. I was working at the state level. That particular episode, later on, we came to know, had international ramifications. And it was one of the rare cases where there was a confrontation, not understanding. Each agency working and targeting the same people. So this is rare, but this happens. And I feel both crime branch was very professional, and I think intelligence bureau was very professional. In fact, somebody from US, I think Washington Post, they contacted me about a month back and they wanted me to talk of that episode, and I refused. Whatever I wanted to say, I have said it in the book. Read it and draw your own conclusions. But let me tell you, IB is absolutely clean organization, and so is crime branch. This was a rare case of conflict.
Tell me, ma'am, did, again, going back to my old question, did you not get scared of all these big names and, coming in your life, all these underworlds and, the kind of language they use, the kind of scene that you see, and even the people, like you rightly said, most of your officers were stars because they would shoot people down. How did you handle them? Did it scare you at any point in time?
No, no. I think these are my Punjabi genes. I didn't even once feel scared. Okay, I think I mentioned that episode in the book where a right hand man of a gangster early in my career rang me up and said, "Your driver is asking for 2,000 rupees. Should I give him?" And I had said, "Jute maar ke bhej do." He said, "I knew it. Aapka yahi jawab hoga." So, is it difficult to believe that criminals also have their own ethics? They respect straight, honest officers. That's my point number one. And that's why I didn't feel scared. And another episode which I have not quoted in the book is when Chota Rajan is asking his wife about the studies of his three daughters, tuition, school, how keen are they in their studies, how studious are they. And in the end, what does he say? He says, "Nani, त्यांना आपल्याला IPS करायचे आहे. We want these girls to join IPS." So scratch a criminal, even he would like to be on a straight path. And therefore, my feeling is that in their own way, they don't threaten, they don't touch, they don't pose an issue for honest officers, and they respect law. That's my feeling. I may be totally wrong. But then I have put in 36 years of service. So you will have to challenge me with facts.
Ma'am, I want to pick up an audience question, and Ravi asks: is it difficult to be an honest officer? Is it difficult to survive being an honest officer?
It's not difficult, I would say, but it's not difficult in the sense I used to say when I was very young. Of course, later on, one doesn't make these rash statements. I used to say in Marathi, so that my staff knows, that you can only transfer me for the politicians. They can only transfer me if they want me to remove. If they want to remove me from service, they need President of India's approval. जर तुम्हाला मला सर्व्हिसमधून काढायचे असेल तर राष्ट्रपतीची परवानगी लागणार आहे, बर का. तुम्ही मला केवळ ट्रान्सफरच करू शकताय ना. सो इफ यू गो विथ दिस माइंड that all politicians are not bad, many of them have the good of citizens in heart, and in case you disagree with them, disagree politely, but Worst come worst, they can transfer you out. It's very difficult to dismiss or remove an honest officer of any government organization. IAS, IPS, IFS, audits, postal.
Ma'am, as an officer, I mean, was it difficult for you to have a normal life,
That
a
I think
wife?
you asked my husband and my children, but I enjoyed having both my boys. I loved spending time with them, and I had developed certain tools like I would clear my files after my children have gone to sleep. Once I reach home, I will tell my children, don't come near mama for half an hour. Let her disengage mentally from a hectic routine. I am a compulsive walker. I'll do lots of thinking. So I don't know what normal life is, but I enjoyed my career and I enjoyed my personal life. And mind you, every year I would take my full earned leave and come to Punjab and 7 to 10 days to go around. So if you keep your career in proper perspective, do not go overboard. You can have good personal and good professional life.
I mean, Mama walks in with a gun, ma'am. Yeah, that would be different, isn't it? When you walk in home, when you are in a uniform, and is that the same as any other person?
No, first time when I was given revolver, I felt I had aged 5 years. It was a very difficult experience to have a gun at home. When my first child was born, I changed from a revolver to 9 mm pistol only because a child cannot cock the 9 mm pistol. And later on in my career, I at least made an attempt कि घर आने से पहले you take out your revolver and put it in your briefcase. So I think if you're enjoying your career, you find out some tools to help you to normalize your life. And I'm sure all officers do this.
And what are the tools, ma'am? What are the tools that how you normalize your life?
Yeah, like I'm telling you that you must take leave. Don't get so obsessed with your career that you don't take leave. I have cooked so much of non-veg and Punjabi dishes for my children. Don't think that just because I'm in uniform, I have no time for kitchen. Then, like I told you, the simple thing. Once I would reach home, I would say, half an hour, please leave mom alone. And then you get the strength to handle domestic duties. Then good reading helps, good company helps. Me and my husband, we would not accept any invite if the children were not invited. So these are the steps which we took.
But, ma'am, in your life, in your career, I'm sure there have been a lot of frustrating moments. One of it is your promotion to head of CID. I don't know if you are aware of this, ma'am. The Chief Minister of Maharashtra, possibly you were the only officer where the Chief Minister has gone on record to say that your transfer was stopped because NCP didn't want to get you transferred to CID. This is what CM Prithviraj Chavan had mentioned in 2012. Now, doesn't this frustrate you? Doesn't it make you angry? कि भाई क्या किया मैंने?
Yeah, sure, it does. But then from day one, you are told that All India services postings are in the hands of politicians. Still, knowing this also, it hurts you. So I have gone through periods where I felt very low, but then you work on yourself and you get out of it. I have also mentioned in the book when I was not made the chief of state CID and I came to the prison department. I felt low, and a DCP who was working with me had an argument for nearly 40 minutes that don't accept this post from being Commissioner of Police Pune. You are stepping down by accepting the post of prison chief of Maharashtra. But mind you, today I am known more for the hanging of Kasab and Yaqub Mehman than for being the first woman police commissioner of Pune. So you have your uh, moments when you feel low, but you never know what is good in the next posting. So you carry on. And then over a period of time, one gets over that feeling that I have been refused a posting, especially when that post was vacant.
Is there a feeling of vendetta, ma'am?
Vendetta by the politicians or by.
No, by the officer too at times. Okay, bhai, let me get a chance and I will show you. A lot of things seems to be happening nowadays. So is there a vendetta, which is very natural, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I've seen this amongst young officers, but matured officers take it in a stride. I think after 20 years in service, uh, you you finally understand that in a democracy, it's not bureaucracy; it's the politicians who run the country, and actually, it's the citizens who should raise their voice. That these officers are good officers. Why are you sidelining them? Citizens' apathy is known, and they also inability to understand who is a good and who is a bad officer. So if today we do not have professionally sound officers at the top, politicians are not suffering, their personal gain is worth crores. It's the citizens and the administration and the country that suffers.
Ma'am, two questions. I've got 5 minutes, so I've got two more questions to ask you, ma'am. Question number one is, how do you make up your mind when you talk about hanging, or when you talk about those kind of decisions that you have to make? How do you make up your mind? What goes behind that? Is it your training that helps you, or is it the way you build yourself that helps you?
No, I have thought about it. Not only hangings, but in an episode where four people were killed, we discussed just now, and 60 rounds fired. When I look back, I feel it's sheer training which helped me. And training, not only the physical part of it, but how to remain emotionally strong, how to lead a team. And most of the time, this team consisted only of men, and how to make the team give its best. All this I feel was training.
And what is your opinion about encounters? Was it a right
Good.
step at that point in
No,
time,
no,
or
no, no, not at all. But I very strongly feel like we have just now discussed. I feel citizens' apathy, their inability to understand and differentiate between professional and unprofessional officers. Similarly, our inability to finish the trial of a case within a year and a half and appeal within another, say, 1 year, has led officers to take to guns. And I don't blame them totally either. These are the officers who feel and who used to tell me, madam, पांच और मार देगा और फिर भी केस उसका छूट जाएगा. So the fact that in India the trial is so late, it is so delayed, that is what encouraged the officers to take to gun. And a very senior officer told me, he said, मुझे पता है ये दवाई गलत है, पर क्या करूं, यही चल रही है, इसी से इलाज हो रहा है. So the इलाज is fast trial, and no officer will take to gun.
my last question to you. You have to start all over again, and you have a choice between becoming the CEO of PepsiCo, or going back and joining that old academy of yours. What would you choose today?
Anytime civil services, they give so much meaning to your life. You know, happiness is not money alone, and these days they pay the civil servants quite well. वही ना,
Yeah.
want और desire में फर्क है. They look after you quite well, but the meaning and the service content of civil services is so high that for me, anytime civil services.
With all the politicians and every delay in legal system, everything, with everything, you still feel civil services.
At least I enjoyed those 36 meaningful years. I will not trade them for a five-star corporate life. Never.
Ma'am, last question. I want to ask you one more question. What was the best moment of your life in 36 years of your service? The best you could say, this is it. Like,
I don't know. There were many best moments, but I once when I was thinking of was when a woman from Haswad police station came in an absolutely torn sari, and she insisted that I was sitting on this chair to give her justice. I felt my life was made. If if a woman thinks that my being in that chair has meaning for her and for other women, other marginalized, weaker sections, if I can help them with my uniform, my life is made.
Ma'am, thank you so much for talking to me. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you, ma'am. Indeed a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.